going to Mordor alone.
Of course you are. And I'm coming with you.
Welcome back, Planeswalkers, and today I have a really special video today. We have two commanders, that's right, two commanders. So we have Frodo, Adventurous Hobbit, and Sam, Loyal Attendant. Some really cool commanders here, the heroes of Middle Earth. And since we have two commanders, I figured, hey, you know what? Let's do two deck lists today in this video. So what that means is I have two deck lists. One of them is going to be made with only Lord of the Rings cards, and I will single out those cards, and they will replace cards that I have in the optimal deck build, I'm calling it, where we play some cards in Magic that aren't Lord of the Rings themed, and they kind of stick out like a sore thumb. Starting with Frodo, Adventurous Hobbit. So he is a 1/3 halfling scout with vigilance, and whenever he attacks, if you gain 3 or more life this turn, the ring will tempt us, and then if it has tempted us 2 or more times this game, we draw a card. And Sam is the enabler, who at the beginning of our combat step will make us a food token, and he makes our food tokens sacrifice for less. Their activated ability is 1 less, so we'll sacrifice our food for 1, gain us that 3 life, that will then trigger Frodo. The idea of this deck is we are going to be playing off a life gain synergy, where we are going to use our life gain to drain the opponent, draw cards. So, without any further interruptions, let's get into the mana base. So, going into our mana base, we're going to start things off with the fetch lands. So, to start off with, we have Ash Barrens, Evolving Wilds, and then the usual suspects of Verdant Catacombs, Windswept Heath, and Marsh Flats. For utility, I am playing Path of Ancestry for the Scry, Plaza of Heroes, because it is an insanely good land when you're playing this many legendaries while also offering protection. And then we have Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth, to give our opponents force, which you'll find out later, but it's always great to just make sure that our mana base is fixed and we have as many force as we need. Reliquary Tower, because we are going to be drawing quite a few cards in this deck. And then for dual lands, these are interchangeable, I would say, and it's definitely based on your budget. So I have Woodland Cemetery, Sunpetal Grove, Isolated Chapel, Temple Garden, Overgrown Tomb, Godless Shrine, Scoured Barrens, Scattered Groves, Sandstep Citadel, Endatha Triome, Shine Shadow Snarl, say that 10 times fast, and Necro Blossom Snarl, with Fortified Village, Horizon Canopy, Reflecting Pool, Exotic Orchard, Command Tower, and Canopy Vista, Brushland as well. So as you can see, those are all pretty, really it's based on your budget, when I would say with lands. Of course, picking up the shock lands is always a good idea because you will get a lot of use out of them, even if you deconstruct this deck at one point. So I definitely recommend, if there's a land that you want to pick up out of this, pick that up. However, obviously, if you're going with the Lord of the Rings version, the mana base becomes a little bit different, and we actually play an extra land in the Lord of the Rings version. Alright, moving into our artifacts, we're going to start things off with the mana rocks. That is going to be Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Talisman of Hierarchy, Talisman of Resilience, Thought Vessel, and Chromatic Lantern with Commander Sphere. Those will be all our mana rocks. And moving into the utility artifacts, we got Aether Flux Reservoir. That is right, we are going to use our life total to laser beam other players. This card is perfect because we are going to be gaining a lot of life in this deck. We also have Almaret's Archive, because we're gaining life and we're drawing cards, it kind of does everything we want. It doubles that effect, right? And then we have Bolas's Citadel as a way to use our life total to bring advantage to our board. And of course we have the Great Henge, because if you're playing green and you're playing creatures, there's no reason not to play the Great Henge. This card is just insane. Gives us life, draws us cards, and grows our creatures. There's a reason why this card's $50, and I still think it's a great pickup because it is a commander staple at this point, and it has been since its release. Now I do want to note though, if you see on the Lord of the Rings versions, we are playing more equipment than mana rocks. That is because our mana sources are going to be coming from sorceries, like Cultivate, and from our creatures. So that is one distinction you will see between the two decks. Next, let's move into our enchantments. Starting things off in the enchantments, we have Call of the Ring, just a really strong enchantment right now and very underrated. It is card draw, and it grows your creature into becoming a monster because it is dealing 3, it can't really be blocked. And it also draws you a card. Just a really super good enchantment. Trail of Crumbs, because we are making so much food that is just a really good source of card draw. We have Agent of the Iron Throne, because anytime we sack our foods, we're going to be pinging our opponents, and we have other tokens in the deck as well. Black Market Connections, because, well, this has become a staple of Black in Commander. This card does everything we want it to do. It gives us a treasure token that we can sack with the Agent of the Iron Throne. card draw, and creatures, so just all around really good card. And then we have Of Herbs and Stewed Rabbits. So this card does exactly what we want to do. It's giving us card draw and food tokens. We have Anointed Procession, because why not? Let's make double the food. Smothering Tithe, because this is a white staple. It is a really annoying card for opponents to play against, and we have good use with those treasure tokens, because you're going to find that we have a lot of synergies where when we're sacking our artifacts, we are draining the table. We also have Exquisite Blood. This is a combo piece with, of course, Sanguine Bond, which we are also playing. And that's going to finish us off for enchantments. Now, if you look towards our Lord of the Rings only, you'll see that we go for it's a little bit more downplayed. We don't have really strong cards like Exquisite Blood. We still have Sanguine Bond, because luckily they printed a Lord of the Rings version. But you'll see we move into more of a token theme without the Anointed Procession, but a token theme where we're going to grow our tokens and kind of stampede our opponents. So let's move on to our spells. Alright, so the spells will go pretty quickly, just because we're playing majority of creatures. So, to start things off, we have Swords of the Plowshares removal, Deadly Dispute, because we're making a lot of artifacts and we want more artifacts, so Deadly Dispute's perfect as a good way for card draw. We have Farseek as a little bit of ramp, Go for the Throat is more removal, Heroic Intervention, because that is an insane protection in Commander, and I'm sure that you've seen it in your games. It is a green staple at this point. Hobbit Sting, because it works with our food tokens and a lot of creatures. We have Reprieve, because that is a sweet remand, and we don't mind having that ability in our deck to just take someone off their combo for a turn and maybe finish them off. We have Anguished Unmaking as the ultimate removal in our deck. Toxic Deluge is a board wipe that we can filter to maybe save our creatures. We have Dusk to Dawn, because this works with a lot of our creatures are really low power, so this works perfectly for us. And speaking of creatures, let's move into them. Moving into our creatures, we have Birds of Paradise, Gilded Goose, and Prosperous Innkeeper as a way to ramp us. Prosperous Innkeeper is also part of our Soul Sister package, because we are playing Essence Warden, Soul Warden, and Frodo Bane. Now, Frodo is not a Soul Sister, but I just threw him in with them. So we're playing the Soul Sisters because we do have a synergy in this deck where every time we're gaining life, we are draining our opponents, and also when we're gaining life, we're drawing cards. So of course, we naturally want to have a lot of life gain. Now, Frodo works as a lightning rod in this deck because he's pretty scary. We do tend to tempt a lot in our deck using our commander. And so I kind of threw him in there as a lightning rod, and also he could be a win condition. If he's not answered, I mean, eventually he will just win the game. We are playing Banquet Guest, Farmer Con, and Lathro Corrupt Sheriff. Banquet Guests, as we do have a lot of foods to sacrifice to make it indestructible, and having a giant creature is always useful when you're trying to beat down your opponents. Farmer Con is an insane card in this deck. I think it's going to be a token staple from now on, because who wouldn't want to make a bunch of hobbits and then also a bunch of food, because our deck really wants a lot of food. So Farmer Con is just, what a card. What an insane card. And then the Sheriff is going to function as a way to ramp us, and we're not worried about the drain again because we're gaining so much life. We also have Dina's Soul Steeper as a way that every time we're gaining that life, we're draining our opponents. We have Golem Obsessed Stalker as another way to drain the table. And Vito, Thorn of the Dusk Rose, as another Sanguine Bond effect, and he also can give our creatures life links, so that's also super useful. And then we have Pippin, Warden of Isengard, as a way to buff our creatures when we're making our food, so he's pretty useful in here because he kind of plays into that token strategy. We have Samwise Gamgee. It's because he's just another crazy card. I mean, this is a reanimator for us, and it also helps us make extra food. We have Samwise the Stout-Hearted as another way to reanimate creatures that we need to with Flash. So I like Samwise the Stout-Hearted as a way to like some protection on your board without actually having a protection spell. We have Academy Manufacturer because we're making a lot of food in this deck, so why wouldn't we want to make a clue and a treasure with it? Academy Manufacturer is just really good in this deck. Just an insane, like, you'll see if you get a chance to have this card on the board and not get it blown up instantly, it's going to do some crazy things. We have Braid's Arisen Nightmare as another way for us to sacrifice all these extra tokens that we're making and turn it into card draw, because keep in mind this is each player, so not everyone's going to be okay with sacrificing an artifact, and it doesn't have to be an artifact. It can be a creature, a land, anything on your table that you have extra of. and we turn that into card draw while also draining our opponents, so best of both worlds. We have Chatterfang, Squirrel General. When you're making this many tokens, we're going to be making a lot of squirrels. Chatterfang works as removal, and hey, we have Yavimaya, so our table has forests, so he can't be blocked. So Chatterfang just works really well in this deck, especially because he is a sack outlet again, and when we're losing those tokens, we're going to be draining the table. We have Mary, Warden of Isengard, as a way to make more tokens. And then we have Nedler's Nightblade. This is how we're going to start draining the table, because every time we're losing these tokens, we're draining for 1. So just a super useful card and one of the key pieces of our deck. We have Peregrine Took as a way to make more food and sacrifice that food to draw cards. And then here we go. We got Rapacious Guest. This card I have seen in action, and it is very scary, let me tell you. Rapacious Guest is a leave the battlefield, so even if they do exile this card, they are losing so much life. Let me tell you, this card is very spooky, and we have a couple ways to sacrifice it if we need to. We also have Rosy Cotton of South Lane, a really useful card because it's going to generate us food, and it's going to put a lot of +1/+1 counters on our stuff, giving us big creatures to swing in and just absolutely pummel our opponents. We have Savvy Hunter as a way to sacrifice our creatures to draw cards, and a way to generate food, which is perfect for this deck. We have the Gaffer, which is Sam's dad, and that is going to help us draw additional cards. So of course it's just fitting. He's a fitting card to put in it, and it's just more card draw. We have Tireless Provisioner because, hey, more food and treasure if we need to. And then we have Lathril, the Bounteous Dawn. This is another way for us to grow our board if we need to. Just again, it's a really useful card too because it can also do multiple creatures. Markwood Bats, because we're generating a lot of tokens, right? So if we play Farmer Cotton, let's say, for X equals 10, that's 10 life to the table. That is, well, sorry, that's not 10 life, that's 20 life because you're making 10 food and then 10 hobbits. So Markwood Bats is a very scary card in this deck because it is on enter and it is on leave as well. We have Treebeard, Gracious Host. Of course, Treebeard's in here. He's a friend of the Hobbits and a really useful way, again, kind of like an Angel of Thune in our deck to grow our board again. And speaking of Archangel of Thune, we are also playing Archangel of Thune in this deck as another way to just grow our board massively and just pummel everyone. We also have Witch of the Moors. I have not tried this deck out, and I do want to. I think it has a shot at actually being very good. And the fact that it works as a edict on our opponents is part of the reason why, the main reason I'm really playing this card. But I think it has a good spot in this deck, and we'll see. You know, we'll test it out and we'll see how it goes. And then we have Marionette Master. If you've played a lot of Commander over the years, ever since 8th of Revolt, you definitely are familiar with this card and you know just how powerful it can be, and it is just as powerful in this deck, especially when, let's say, Treebeard's pumping up its, or not Treebeard, I'm sorry, Archangel of Thune is pumping up its power. Things get really crazy because keep in mind, Sam makes our foods only sacrifice for 1 mana. Instead, he actually lessens the cost, and that's not including like the Soul Sister drain and all that kind of stuff that we can do. So Marionette Master can get really big, really fast, and even if it's for 1, it's still going to be a lot of damage to our opponents. But most of the time, I'm telling you, Marionette Master is going to have like 6 or 7 or 8 toughness every time we're sacrificing a food, and you're just going to watch your opponents evaporate. So that is the non-Lord of the Rings version. Now, of course, you did see all the Lord of the Rings versions. Now, we are playing less creatures in the Lord of the Rings version. We are playing a little more enchantments and some more removal, like the Path to Exile, which didn't make it into the main deck that I made. But I actually think the Lord of the Rings deck version is pretty interesting. Again, you really are playing on making a lot of tokens and beating your opponents down, which is very similar to the main deck. You just lose a little bit of the aristocrat style that the main deck has. But I still think it's just as powerful, and honestly, it's a huge flavor win, so, you know, you tell me which one's better. Anyways, that's going to do it for our deck, guys. We are not playing any Planeswalkers in this deck because they do not put Planeswalkers in the multiverse sets. Anyways, thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this deck, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. As always, if you have a deck that you would like me to build in the future, leave it down in the comments. See ya!